So this is the episode I'm talking during. So you're starting this one?
If I have to.
Okay. So...
Welcome to hell.
Yes. Well, this fucking room is like 107 degrees like hell.
It's literally 95. And I'm sick.
And you're drinking PBR.
Yeah. Welcome to this episode then.
Mitchell's like all nervously looking at the sound waves to make sure that we don't have an episode 6.1.
Yeah. I'm not doing that again. Except now there's a dog barking outside too.
And birds chirping. There's like a whole lot of fucking nature in this 95-degree room.
In the last episode, it sounds like crickets during the silence.
Uh-huh.
Wait. Do you hear it right now?
I hear barking and I hear chirping.
Yeah. You can hear that chirping a lot throughout the last episode.
Was that chirping?
Yeah.
I think that was me burping.
I'm going to be burping this entire episode.
Yeah. So anybody who's listened to previous episodes, this is going to be one of those PBR episodes where we're just cracking open beers and drinking throughout.
And the microphone's going to be banging around, I'm sure.
Yeah. Mitchell was very cranky because apparently he kept touching the table and moving the microphone during the last episode.
You did.
And he's very embarrassed about all the touching of the table he was doing. So listeners, I'm very sorry for Mitchell's poor microphone behavior. He's promised that it won't repeat this time.
That's it. We're cutting this episode. It's over. I wonder if that was too much, setting the can down just now.
Probably. I think you ruined this episode.
Everybody's going to be so mad. Nobody listens to this part anyway.
Well, and also, it's episode fucking 6. And anybody who listens to podcasts enough knows that you can't judge a podcast on by its recording by the quality of the audio on its 6th episode.
Yeah, but what's the cutoff? I
feel like by episode, I don't know, between 12 and 20, you better have your shit worked out.
Well, you just fucking you just time bombed us.
So it's true. If you make an episode somewhere between 12 and 20 and you're like, this show still sucks, fucking give up on us. Because it's not going to get any better than that.
Gee, thanks.
I mean, I'm a professional podcaster. I'm on 103 podcasts. So all I'm saying is we know that the problem's not me.
It is. That was probably way too quiet to even register.
That's true. You might be a little over-focused on that part at the moment.
What?
The audio levels.
Yeah, because I talk really quiet all the time.
So talk fucking louder. I almost touched the microphone.
Hurts. I know.
Because I was going to move it closer to you, but I'm afraid you're going to get mad at me.
I can't talk any louder today.
Well, then I guess during editing, you're going to have to spend a lot of time making your voice louder. Or you can just do what I do with the other podcasts I'm on and not fucking give a shit and just release it as it is.
Yeah, but I want this podcast to be good.
My other podcasts are very good. They are beloved in the RPG world.
Sure.
At Gen Con, I had a couple of people who recognized me by my voice. That is what a celebrity I am. And in fact, one person came up to me and said, wait, are you on Spellburn? And I said, yes. And he said, are you Jeff or Julian? That's how famous I am. I was one of 2 people potentially.
Well, I'm sure all of those years of the sex lines helped too, so.
Oh, that's funny, actually. That's a really good point.
Why, did you do sex hotline?
Of course I did.
Oh my god.
Because I'm 8 years older than you.
Oh my god.
So when I was 18 years old, it was 1998. How do you think that an 18-year-old who was looking for sex in Seattle in 1998 found it?
Just by your voice?
You have fucking sex hotlines. You have these numbers you call. And what was funny is like everyone's like, hey, this is Bruce.
Everybody was Bruce?
I'm 32 and I got a 9-inch dick and I'm real masculine. Like, everybody on the fucking phone lines had these really deep voices. And like, I know for a fact that every single one of those fucking people would like listen to the message they recorded. Then you could press a button to re-listen to the message. They'd hear it and they'd be like, oh my God, I sound like such a faggot.
Wait,
I need
messages?
to re-record this. Or your like profile.
Oh, okay.
Because do you even know how they worked?
No, I thought you just like called and it just like connected you with somebody.
Oh, some of them did work that way, but usually not. Usually the way they worked is you would kind of almost record like a Craigslist ad essentially. We'd be like, hi, I'm Jeff. I'm 18 years old. I'm super masculine. I've got a 23-inch dick. and I love sucking dick. Even though I've got a 23-inch dick, I don't want you to look at it. I just want to suck your dick. So then as the messages are going through, you hear these messages. And when that one comes up, if you want to chat with Jeff, when that message comes up, you can like press 1 to send Jeff a message, press 2 to skip Jeff, press 3 to block Jeff, things like that.
That's weird.
Yeah, but that's how it worked. Most of them had like a certain threshold where you had to start paying, but most of them were free for like the first few months that they were out, or for the first half hour you were using it. So even though I was 18 and broke as hell, I was able to find a lot of sex that way. And that's how I found my first boyfriend. That's how I met Tom.
This is now your opening story, by the way. So what conversations?
Okay, that's a good point, because actually I did have a story planned, but I guess this can be my opening story. Oh yeah, because I met a lot of fucking crazy people through that thing.
Like in person?
Yeah, I met a lot of people in person.
Oh.
I mean, because this was... I mean, I did meet some people through the internet prior to that, because when I lived in Montana, I did meet like an Air Force guy through the internet, and we had sex when I was like 17, and I think he was like 20 something. Oh, and I met this other guy through the internet when I was living in Montana, and that's a whole nother story. I'll tell that story another time, because that's a very involved story, but that'll be a future story. But yeah, so the sex lines, but that was mostly how I was meeting people until I started like going to internet cafes a lot for like Craigslist and shit. And of course, like I had a fake ID and I'd go to gay bars. But I was a very, very sexually active 18 to 38-year-old.
Was.
Do you have any other questions about the bygone era of the phone sex lines?
You just used your actual name?
Oh, that's a good point. A lot of people didn't use a name. A lot of people just like, hey, I live in Capitol Hill. I'm 23 years old, 6'3", 125 pounds. I've got no body mass. I don't know. But some people, yeah, I do think I occasionally used my name, but I also think sometimes I said I was James.
Oh, so secretive.
Yeah, so secretive. James. Hey, I'm James.
Just use your middle name.
Hey, I'm Batman. That's it. They were all fucking Christian Bale as Batman.
Oh.
It was a whole bunch of homos pretending to be Christian Bale as Batman. And then you meet up with them and they're just like fucking, yeah, they're fucking Adam Lambert in person.
What does that mean?
I don't know. They're not fucking Christian Bale as Batman.
They're all the lead singer of Queen now?
They've all got big hair and eyeliner.
Okay.
Which is great. I mean, I love that shit, but that is not how they or me or any of us were portraying ourselves. Come on, it's 1998. We all fucking hated the fact that we were gay. Internalized homophobia wasn't even a phrase yet because it was just something we all fucking had and lived with. Nobody, like, I feel like, or maybe it was a phrase, but if it was like strictly in like, what do you, I thought you were like pulling out a book to prove me something, but really you're just fanning yourself with it.
It feels so good, yeah.
Although I think I read somewhere that the act of fanning yourself off with any kind of an object actually raises your body temperature because the physical exertion of fanning yourself.
I feel like I'm at least working at just like a zero sum right now, whereas if I'm just sitting here, I'm sweating.
Okay. Well, one thing, and I know you make fun of me for this kind of shit, but I did Bikram yoga for a while. And, but
I would literally die.
Yeah, well, I mean, I basically literally did die my first time. I was so dizzy and sick feeling and nauseous after the first one that I think I was only doing the poses for the first like 10 minutes, and for the remaining 80 minutes of the class I was laying there feeling like I was going to barf. But they told me that I couldn't leave the room, so I didn't. But then afterwards, like, I had a bunch of people come up to me and be like, hey man, it's cool, like this totally happened to me on my first time, just keep coming back. And like I kept coming back, and like it really, like, I started being able to do it. But the point is, one of the things that they would say is to like not wipe the sweat off your face either, to just like sit with it and like let it be there, and that like it's just fucking ego to like worry about it. And as dumb as that sounds, I've really embraced that, and I just like, I'm fine just fucking being sweaty now. But it used to stress me the fuck out to have sweat on me.
I hate it. I'm hot. I hate being hot. I hate being cold.
But your body sweats for a reason. So when you're covered in sweat, it makes you cooler. So if you keep wiping that sweat off, it just makes you hotter and hotter.
I don't like being wet. It's not even about the sweat.
Is that why you don't bathe?
It's like,
oh,
I don't like being, like, if it's raining outside and I get wet, like going from point A to point B, I hate it so much.
I hate having wet feet, like wet socks.
Yeah, well, so
That's gross.
like that all over your body.
It's not though, because like right now, having a little bit of sweat on my forehead and in my armpits is nothing like spending all day walking around in sopping wet socks. That is a very different, disgusting experience.
It doesn't help that like it's like a record hot day probably today.
Yeah, today it's hotter in Cleveland than it is in Miami.
Yeah. And they closed like 500 schools.
Yeah, it's so hot today, schools were fucking closed.
And we're sitting in a non-ventilated room.
Yeah, where's your fucking AC?
Just for you fucking people.
They don't even care. They don't even appreciate
Nobody's
it.
listening to this
Nobody's
episode.
listening to it. Well, that's not true. Wesley's listening to this, and as soon as he hears us say that, he's going to send me a message on Messenger. Be like,
I was
hey,
listening.
You're right. I was listening. We love you, Wes.
Better appreciate it.
So I guess that was my story. Tell me a story, Mitchell.
So I was also a phone sex worker.
Not true. And I wasn't a phone sex worker. I was just using the
wanted to
phone
call
sex
it
lines
that.
to meet guys.
Oh, I thought you were a worker.
Oh,
That's what I was saying. I was like, you worked at a phone sex on
Oh,
a hotline, and
no,
you were
no,
like,
no.
yeah, of course I did.
Did you say the word worked?
Yes.
No, I did not work for a phone
If I
sex
didn't,
hotline.
I'm gonna go cut the word worked and paste it back into whatever I said originally. But I'm pretty sure I did say it.
Yeah, I think you asked me if I was on phone. Oh, anyways, yes. So there were phone sex lines that you could call.
That's why I was so
to, like,
confused about
talk.
why you had profiles.
Oh no. Because there are phone sex lines that you could call and just like talk to like a person whose job it was to like jerk off, get you to jerk off. But then there were phone sex lines where like you could meet people and either have erotic discussions with them or meet with them in real life.
That's why I was like so confused about like the profile thing and you meeting people
Oh.
and shit. And I was like, what?
Although, am I talking too much if I tell you about my actual phone sex line story?
Let me see where we are. No, we're good. How long's your
good?
story?
It's
How long is the content of this episode?
It's 47 minutes and 13 seconds.
Then we're good.
Okay, good. So when I was 12, I used to. Oh no, I had to have been older than that. I was like 13 or 14. It doesn't matter.
Is this an illegal story?
Shh. So I'm like 12, 13, or 14. I think closer to 12 or 13 though. And I used to go to Seattle all the time. I lived in Bremerton, Washington, which is a $3.50 ferry ride from Seattle. And I would go there.
I bet it's not now.
You're right, it's more now. And I would go there and I would pick up these like gay magazines and I would like go home and like jerk off to them. But also in them, there were all these ads. And actually a lot of what I would jerk off to were like the images in the phone sex ads. And I started calling them. And I started calling them a lot. And I ended up racking up about a $700 or $800 phone bill.
Oh my god.
Doing this. No, I think I was 12. And I was so afraid that I was going to get in trouble that I decided to devise a really elaborate plot to get away with it. And my elaborate plot was to wait until the phone bill came. And then when it came, take it. And then steal a check from my mom's checkbook.
Oh my god.
And then write a check for the amount of the phone bill.
Because
and
she
then
won't notice.
Well, no, because then like she never saw the bill.
Uh-huh.
That was my elaborate plan. So the first step, the bill hadn't come yet, but I took the check out of my mom's checkbook. And this was apparently back in the day when like I guess people used to balance their fucking checkbooks.
Well, yeah, you keep track of your fucking check numbers.
Yeah. So the very first thing that happened is my mom, like the very next day was like, I'm missing a check. And she was like freaked the fuck out. And she's like, who stole my check? And she like completely thought that like one of me and my brother's friends had like stolen a check from her. And I completely deny. That's what you do. Deny. And then when the phone bill came, she saw it. I don't know if she knew it was like gay hotlines because I was like fully like 12 and like talking to adult men who were
What
like
else would
walking me
it
through
have
like
been,
locker room scenarios. I don't know if she knew that they were gay hotlines, but she definitely knew they were phone sex lines. And she had to have known because apparently when the phone bill came, like my mom called and like got like some manager on the phone and was like, I'm not paying these bills. My child is 12 years old. And if you don't remove
And
these
they're
charges...
like, your child is 12, so therefore you are paying it. Because it apparently did happen.
So my mom completely threatened to, I don't know, do what with them, but they removed the charges and it was fine. But it was another example of like, I don't know. I wasn't the one in trouble here. It was the phone sex lines were the enemies.
Sure.
But yes. So that was my second phone sex story. Should I tell you more?
No.
Should this just become the Jeff tells you stories about phone sex?
Yeah, just do the whole podcast.
Okay. So then there was the time that I met the guy in the Velvet Mafia.
No.
That's actually true. That's another story. I'll tell you sometime. It's, for the record, it's not true that there is such a thing as the Velvet Mafia, but it is true that I met somebody who claimed to be a part of this gay mafia.
The gay mafia.
And it was my first encounter with a micropenis.
Ew. I guess I shouldn't say ew, but...
Yeah, exactly. That's not very sensitive, Mitchell.
I'm sensitive.
You were culturally insensitive to the micropenis
That's
population.
not a culture thing.
They have their own unique songs.
No.
and styles of dress and cuisine.
No.
You've never had like a fucking delicious micropenis cuisine?
No.
You should really...
About 3 penis wine.
Tell a story.
All right, I'll tell a story, but we need to go get some air.
Are we taking a break?
Yeah. And see, we're back from our break.
We are, and through the power of radio, it's as though no time passed at all. Gentle listeners.
It's been 4 days.
And I have very bad news. On the break, I discovered that Mitchell has never heard of She-Ra.
Yeah. So anyway.
That's disgusting. And I'm highly offended.
You should be.
I think technically that makes you a racist and a sexist and a ageist.
Okay.
Maybe not racist because She-Ra's white.
Okay. Anyway, moving on.
But you're definitely sexist for not knowing who She-Ra is.
And that doesn't make any sense.
Oh, also, it turns out, I learned on Twitter today that there's a new kind of astrology, and your astrological sign is actually the best actress winner of the year that you were born in. So I am Sally Field, and Mitchell is fucking Cher.
I'm surprised you know who Cher is.
How dare you? I was raised by a gay man. My mother is a gay man because she was obsessed with Cher, Bette Midler, and Dolly Parton.
My mom's pretty close. So now what?
Well, now apparently you're telling us a story. We know it's not about She-Ra.
So my story is the time that I got a kidney stone.
Ew.
Did I tell you the story?
Yeah.
Well, let's pretend like I didn't.
Well, and you know how bad my memory is. I probably only remember about a third of your story.
I could tell you
anyways.
the story every day, and you would never remember if I told you or not.
I have really
I'm
bad
gonna start
memory.
telling you the same jokes every day.
That's fine.
That was one of the best things about working in retail is you could tell the same jokes to different people all day. Because it was just like, they say the same thing all day, different people. So I had a kidney stone. It was a day that I was luckily, coincidentally, off of work. I woke up and my stomach hurt, or well, at least I thought my stomach hurt. And after like a couple hours, I ended up calling my mom and being like, oh, my stomach hurts. But I really didn't know, especially at this point, what the kidney stone pain was going to be like. And I still can't even think of it when I think about it now. But she just like asked, she was like, oh, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. And even that early on into the day, she was like, maybe it's a kidney stone. And I'm like, I don't know. Because I'd always heard that was like ridiculous pain. Yeah. And it is. But I just like let some more time pass and it just kept getting worse and worse. And it ended up just being like this really dull pain, like kind of like deep within like my stomach. It wasn't like my back or anything, like where my actual kidneys are.
Is that where your kidneys are, in your back?
Yeah, well, like on your side, kind of.
Okay.
I mean, maybe it was, but it was radiating through like the front or something. The pain was radiating through or something.
Oh, so it hurts before it gets to your dick.
Oh, yeah.
I thought it hurt because it was passing through your dick and like it was just too big to go through your urethra.
No, it's hurting because it's scraping the insides of your kidneys.
Oh God! Why do we have nerves in there?
What? I mean, everything.
Not true.
I mean,
lots of our body does not have nerves.
Okay, well, I would think that all of our vital organs, if you scrape them with something that's the consistency of a kidney stone, it's gonna fucking hurt. So I called my mom again, and one of my friends had actually had a appendicitis not too long before that, just a few months, I think, or maybe earlier in the year. And she was like, call his mom and see what that was like, I guess. So I called her, and she was asking me all these questions relating to it, and we kind of determined, we're like, that's not it. And by this point, it was...
This is healthcare in America.
Yeah. By this point, it was pretty bad.
Call your neighbor and find out if it's this thing she had once.
Well, yeah, because I don't want to go and pay hundreds and thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
To find out that it's like something dumb, like, oh yeah, you're having stomach cramps for no reason.
Exactly. Here's your bill for $12,000. Right.
It finally got bad enough to where I was like, I don't care. I don't care what's wrong or what's going on or what they have to do. Like, we're going to the hospital. So my mother-in-law came and picked me up. And by this point, like, I think I'd finally, like, just get kind of given up from holding it because I knew she was coming. So, like, I kind of just, like, let all my defenses down. So, like, at this point, I felt like I was dying.
Yeah.
And this is when we lived on the 18th floor. So she comes and gets me, and I ride the elevator down. Of course, we stop like 500 times, and every time the elevator stops, it's like killing my stomach. And I get all the way down there, and she's like, you have your ID and your insurance card? And I was like, I don't even have my wallet. So I have to go all the way back up. And by the time I get back up to the apartment, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to throw up. I can't even, like, it's so much pain that it's making me sick. Like, and at this point, it had felt like somebody had just jumped on my stomach, just like a second before.
How old were you?
I would have been probably 22.
Okay, Jesus.
So I get my wallet, go back down, I get a plastic bag, and like the whole way to the urgent care place, I was just like wincing in pain. And she's like, I know, I'm trying to get there as fast as we can. And like, of course, I go in and the receptionist is like, hi, how can I help you? And I was just like, I'm in pain. Because I didn't know what to say. And
exactly.
She was just like,
I am in absolute, utter misery.
Like, that's all I said. I was just like, I'm in pain, and just stared at her. And she was like, okay, fill these out. So, like, I don't even think I could fill it out. I think Mickey had to fill them out.
For those listening, Mickey is Will's mother-in-law.
Yeah. So they take me back into, like, the little, whatever that first.
I said Will's
is.
Mother-in-law.
Oh, Will's mother. I didn't even say that.
Your mother-in-law.
So they take me back, and they're like asking me these questions, and I had to give them like a urine sample, and I had like no pee because I'd like tried to use the bathroom like several times before, thinking it was like something related to that, and it wasn't. And I like barely had any urine to give them
because it was blocking it, or just because you didn't.
No,
need
it's
to go?
because like I didn't have to go. Like okay. I've been like trying to use the bathroom like all morning, and I don't know if they tested it or whatever, but at some point they gave me morphine, and like I came really close to throwing up when I was waiting in there, but I never did. Like, they gave me, like, morphine, finally, like, in an IV. And, like, basically from that moment on, I was fine throughout, like, the rest of the kidney stone experience. I mean, even, like, the day after and the day after that. And, like, while I was, like, laying there, they were like, yeah, so we tested your urine, and there's a lot of blood in it, so we're pretty sure you have a kidney stone.
Now, was blood visible in your urine?
Okay. It wasn't, like, right. You couldn't even see it.
I see.
So I guess, I don't know. I guess a lot is probably a certain percentage, even if it's not visible.
Sure.
Like, I guess a lot would be, like, more than none.
Because I've heard stories of people who just go to the bathroom and they're, like, peeing blood. And that, oh my God, I would fucking just have a heart attack right there.
Yeah, no, it wasn't even, like, I wouldn't even have looked at it and been like, something's weird with that. Like, I didn't even look different.
And was it you who sent me the blood in the semen story, or was that somebody else?
What?
Somebody told me some...
I think it was Neil.
Oh, that was so freaky. Oh, geez. Anyways, sorry, go on.
But yeah, they took me in for a CAT scan. They came back and they were like, and they like read it quickly, I guess, or whatever. And they were like, yeah, it's 1.9 centimeters. And I think usually they say it's about...
What?
Yeah. Well, they're tiny.
That's big.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, 2 is usually...
Wait, 1.9 centimeters.
Yeah. Oh, wait, 1.9 millimeters.
Thank you. I was sorry. Like...
No. I was envisioning millimeters in my head, but
okay.
No, 1.9 millimeters, but they say that 2 millimeters is usually like the limit of like being able to pass it easily.
Okay.
And that was what everybody told me. They're like, oh yeah, you think it was bad during that part of it, like wait till you have to pass it. And I'm like, oh great. But honestly, they just gave me like this little mesh funnel thing that I just had to pee in for like a couple days.
Okay.
But no, even when I passed it, I didn't feel it or anything. It didn't hurt.
But what does it mean? Okay, so let's say it was 2.5 millimeters. Then what?
Probably still pass it, but it will hurt. And if you can't, they either have to do this thing where my dad's had to have done. They put you in this like hot tub or like this thing of water basically, and they blast like these like some kind of like waves, like these like sonic waves of some sort into the water to help like break it up. He's had to have that done twice.
That sounds like some homeopathic bullshit.
It's not. It's physical.
They're sending you like sonic waves.
It's physical.
Through a hot tub.
Okay. Physically.
It's not like biofeedback and like.
It's physical.
Okay.
It physically breaks up.
It physically breaks up the physical manifestation.
Or they just have to go in and surgically remove them.
Oh my god.
That was the first time. Then I had it again, but when I went in again the second time,
stop doing that.
They did the CAT scan and everything, and they were like, well, we didn't see anything, so you must have already passed it. And I was like, great.
How old are you? The second time?
Just a couple years ago, so 27 or 28.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Nope, no more of that. I don't like these stories.
Too bad. You want to hear another one?
Sure.
I don't have any.
Tell me a joke.
No.
Mitchell.
I don't want to.
Make me laugh.
No.
Well, instead of making people laugh, I can certainly evoke other feelings and start our actual story. Are you ready for this?
If I have to be.
I think you do. That is the purpose of this program. So today I am telling you the tale of Loung Ung. Loung Ung was born in Cambodia in 1970. So she's 10 years older than me. And she was one of 7 children. She's 48 now. And
how old were the other 6?
Actually, I'll get into that later. But I actually do have that information. But she, I believe, is the second youngest of the 7, maybe the third youngest. She was on the younger side of the 7, but not the youngest, but one of the younger ones. So her father was a high-ranking police officer, and that is a military position at that time. And her mother was a housewife that came from a very wealthy Chinese family. And in general, their family was pretty wealthy. They had 2 cars and a truck. Their house had running water. They had a flushable toilet, an iron bathtub, 2 telephones, 2 cars, a truck, and a maid who came every day.
They're like living the life.
They were living the fucking... Oh, of course you don't. You barely have a flushing toilet.
I have 2.
And you definitely don't have an iron bathtub.
You don't know me.
I do. I've seen your bathtub. It is not made of iron.
You've seen one bathtub.
How many bathtubs do you have? You've got a toilet in the basement, and you've got a bathtub up here that is certainly not made of iron.
Have you been in the garage?
Yes.
Then you didn't.
Thanks for asking. That's where you guys keep your spider eggs.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I don't know how much you know about Cambodia in 1970.
I know a lot about Cambodia in 1970. You'd be surprised.
Then tell me.
No.
Tell me what's going on, because I know I didn't. So let me paint a picture for you of Cambodia in 1970.
Okay, Bob Ross.
So this was the same year as Nixon's Cambodian campaign. Cambodia at the time, I guess it still is, a neighbor of Vietnam, and it had been a neutral nation since 1954.
Switzerland?
Exactly. And they were not involved in the Vietnam War. And then in 1970, the U.S. invaded Cambodia during the Vietnam War so they could better fight the Vietnamese. And the government running Cambodia at the time was backed by the U.S., so there was a civil war, and the Cambodian government is, around that time, overthrown by a revolutionary communist group called the Khmer Rouge. And the Khmer Rouge was overthrew Cambodia with the support of China and Vietnam. So it's important to recognize that at this time, there are a couple of things going on. For one, the government in place before the Khmer Rouge took over was backed by the U.S. And the U.S. is fucking bombing Cambodia. So if you live in a country where your government is backed by a country that's bombing you, you're probably going to want to overthrow that government, right?
I mean, on paper, sure.
On paper, yes. If our president and our country in general was supported by somebody who was throwing bombs at us all the time, we would probably have a problem with that and would want to fix who's running our country.
Right.
And so the current government had a lot of animosity toward it. So at the time, the Khmer Rouge successfully takes over Cambodia with the help of Vietnam and China. And at this time, she is now 5 years old when the Khmer Rouge storm into Phnom Penh, which is her native... What?
That one makes... The name of the restaurant down there is Phnom Penh.
Phnom?
Phnom. Yeah.
Oh, that's cute.
Or wait, not down there. I said down there. It's in North Olmsted. I'm envisioning it in my head like it's down the street, but it was down the street from me in North Olmsted.
And it's called Phnom Penh?
I think so. Phnom. Yeah.
Oh, that's cute. So yeah, it's called Phnom Penh, and it's her native city. It had 2 million people. So cities of about that size in U.S., just for comparison, when we continue on the story, would be. This is between Houston and Philadelphia in terms of population. So pretty major sized city. And she was 5 years old when the Khmer Rouge stormed in. The U.S. embassies at this point had already evacuated. And the Khmer Rouge were telling everybody that they needed to leave the city. Everybody, all 2 million people, needed to evacuate the city because Americans were going to start bombing us. And we need to go now. And you need to leave for the next 3 days.
We'll just go real quick. Hold on.
Exactly. This entire city, just evacuate your home for 3 days, come back, no problem. So she's 5 years old and she's playing when this happens. So her family starts packing up everything that's important to them, that is like what they absolutely need. And they start packing up their truck and they leave the city with all of the other 2 million evacuees, and they're being marshaled by the Khmer Rouge soldiers at this time. So outside of town, there is conflicting information about what happened at this point. So one thing I'll say is, a spoiler alert about the story, is this story is turned into a movie. And so I've watched the movie.
What movie?
I'll tell you all about that in a moment, or actually near the end when we get there. But there's how this scene is protracted, predicted, reducted.
Portrayed?
Portrayed. Thank you.
Oh my God.
I've had some Franzia, White Zinfandel. I've had some PBR. I'm drinking like a Midwestern now.
Is Franzia paying you to say that?
Yes, they are. And
give me some money, bitch.
I'm like sweating out all of it.
Yeah, me too.
It's fucking hot. So, sorry, Loung Ung. I am probably going to completely fuck up your story. But, anyways, in the movie, what happens is their truck is confiscated, and they're told that that this truck now belongs to the people. They're told that by the Khmer Rouge. But in the Wikipedia page, it says, which is supposedly based on the information in her actual book. Spoiler alert, she wrote a book about this too. Said that she ran out of fuel. So, but either way, they either ran out of fuel or the truck was taken away from them.
Regardless, yeah.
Not that far out of the city. So then they had to abandon a lot of their goods, pack up everything they could onto their bodies. So it's the mom, the dad, and the 7 kids. And they're basically carrying everything they can carry. It's hard to imagine, like, if right now you had to pick up and walk for days and days.
What would I even take?
What would you take?
Because if I have to go that long, I'd be like, I don't want any of this shit. I don't take anything. Like,
you love your computer, but like, what good is your computer without the internet? You know, what good is Overwatch without people to play Overwatch with?
I'm not going to carry it for days. Like, that's what I mean.
Exactly. So as they're walking down the road on the 3rd day, so they're only supposed to be gone for 3 days, but it becomes pretty quickly apparent that that's just lip service and they actually just need to leave. On the 3rd day of walking down the road with the evacuees, they encounter a military checkpoint. And at this military checkpoint, the Khmer Rouge was executing government officials, police officers, soldiers, and teachers. And I don't know if you recall this piece of information from the beginning, but her father was a police officer.
Yeah.
So they managed to get past the military checkpoint. They pretend that he's not a police officer and get away with it. And they get past the police checkpoint. And but also at this point, they are told to hand over all of their money because currency and private property was all being abandoned now and no longer existed in this new world. So they were heading to the city of Bat Dang with all the evacuees, and that is a 7-day walk from Phnom Penh.
Oh, Jesus.
And along the 7-day walk, near the end of it, they run into her uncle. And her uncle brings them to the village of Krang Trop. And the family stays with them for a few months, but eventually her uncle and their family send them away because having a former police officer staying in their home was going to put them all at risk of death.
Well, that's fucked up.
So they were like, you can stay with us, but like we can't risk our whole family. You need to go. And also part of the new communist society, in addition to no longer having private property and currency, another thing that you were supposed to reject were family ties and family alliances. So just because your family was needing support, you were supposed to reject that. So after leaving their uncle's safe haven for a little while, they are traveling down the road and they run into Khmer Rouge soldiers. These soldiers strip them of everything that is deemed to be a product of the imperialist society, and they are told that it is criminal to possess any Western medicine, any Western clothing, any of that stuff. All of it needs to completely go away.
So probably just everything then.
Basically everything. Unless it was a product of Cambodia, made in America, this is made in Cambodia, then it had to go. And they were forced to go to a camp whose name I'm not going to be able to pronounce, Loung Ung. And they go to this camp and they're there for a few months. I believe 5 months, if I recall correctly. It's not in my notes. Yes, 5 months. During the 5 months that they were staying at this camp, more than half of the camp died from starvation, food poisoning, or disease.
In 5 months?
In 5 months, more than half of the people at this camp died. And during that time, while everybody was starving, she tells the story of how she stole rice from her own family, how she stole rice from a dying old woman so that she would have food to eat. But at this point, she's like 5-6 years old.
Right. Well, I mean, you're definitely going to do what you need to do to survive at 5 or 6.
Absolutely. So after 5 months there, they're relocated to Ro Leap. And when they get to Ro Leap, their first job is to build their own house and to dye all of their clothes so that everyone looks and is dressed the same. And she is immediately sent out to work in the farms and the rice fields. She's expected to work long hours with almost nothing to eat. And the children would be beaten if they ate any of the food from the fields.
Oh, Jesus. How do you even function at this point? Because it's like the odds are beyond stacked against you.
Absolutely. You're like 5-6 years old. You're starving. And it's your job to fucking pick food and not eat it.
Right. Do you think she ate some of it?
I'm sure she did.
Because, like, who's going to notice?
Yeah.
Unless they physically see her, there's no way that somebody would notice if you took a bite of something.
And she tells stories about people being caught and being beaten.
Right. But, I mean, there's got to be, like, a second. I mean, I'm
of course.
I'm, like, saying how easy it is to, like, just eat piece of food under. But, yeah.
I would imagine it sometimes she did.
Right.
But also one of the things that they were doing is the family would secretly collect bugs at night and cook them in their hut at night so they would have something to eat that had any kind of protein in it. People who were disobeying any of the rules of the Khmer Rouge were sent to re-education camps and would frequently just disappear.
Yeah, so like brainwashing or just death.
Yeah, it's basically just torture and death, but maybe brainwashing as well. She would often see just dead bodies being carted off or floating down the rivers. At this point, she's just surrounded by death. And while she's in this town, her oldest brothers, her 18-year-old brother Meng, her 16-year-old brother Kuoi, and her oldest sister, 14-year-old Kiev, they are sent away to work in different camps. So now the 3 eldest kids are gone, and it's now just the 4 youngest. 6 months later, in August of 1976, so at this point she's about 6 years old, her 14-year-old, maybe 15-year-old sister at this point, dies of food poisoning at the teenagers' work camp.
Oh.
Then not long after that, her father is taken away on a work assignment. In the movie, he's asked to help repair a broken bridge. And in the Wikipedia article, they say that he is asked to help dig out a stuck cart. Either way, he doesn't return from this trip. The Khmer Rouge escorts him away and he's never seen again. And what is posited is that he was sent off to the killing fields and was murdered there. Because many people were being murdered in the killing fields and being thrown into mass graves.
So at this point, does this qualify? Is this genocide?
This is absolutely genocide.
Okay.
I
didn't think we had referred to this as genocide.
We hadn't yet, no, because I'm just kind of telling the story as it unravels. But yes, absolutely. At this point, massive genocide is happening on an absolutely wild scale, which we'll get to in a moment. But So since he was never heard from again, the assumption to this day is that he was killed in one of the killing fields and tossed into a mass grave. So now it's just she and her 11-year-old brother Kim, her 9-year-old sister Chow, and the one who's younger than her 4-year-old sister Geek, The 4 of them are the ones who are remaining, and they avoided starvation by the eldest brother sneaking food into their camps from the work camps they were sent off to. So remember how the 2 oldest brothers were sent off to a different work camp?
Yeah.
At night, they would sneak out of their camp to the camp where their family was living and bring food with them, because they got larger food rations because they were older and were expected to do harder work.
Jesus.
So they would eat less so that they could bring food to their family. Also, the 11-year-old brother would sneak into the fields at night and steal corn. And at least in the movie, at one point, he's caught and is beaten severely. But I don't know if that was just a dramatic touch or if that was actually something that happened. But that's in the movie.
I would not expect that that's too far-fetched, I'm sure.
Oh, sure. So now it's May 1977. And at this point, Loung Ung is 7 years old. And she left the city 2 years ago at this point.
So they've been going through this for 2 years.
For 2 years now, yeah.
Well, besides like the 5 months they were with their family, which was, I'm sure, not great, but it wasn't this, at least.
But they were in fear of being caught.
Yeah, but it wasn't this.
It wasn't this. No, not at all.
For a year and a half it was.
Yeah. So in May 1977, in the hut next to theirs, they're hearing screams in the middle of the night. And when they wake up in the morning, the entire neighboring hut is just empty. The entire family is gone. Just completely missing in the night.
Dead.
They're just completely gone. So after that, their mother is starting to get more and more worried. So there's 4 children, as I mentioned, 11-year-old brother, 9-year-old sister, Loung, and then her 4-year-old sister. So she tells the eldest of the 3, the brother, Chow, and Loung, that they need to run away. And she tells them to run away in 3 different directions, that the youngest girl was too young to run away, so she was going to stay with her mom, but the other 3 needed to run away. And that what they should do is they should all 3 run in completely different directions, get to different work camps, and when they get there, say that they are orphans and don't reveal to anybody their names. Because the mom is afraid that the reason why her husband went missing is because they found out who he was. Oh, and that their whole family was going to die soon.
Right.
So
she's pretending they're not related even? Or
just, yeah, okay. Absolutely. So they do. That's exactly what they do. And she and Chow, the sister, they end up at the same work camp for a little bit, but eventually Loung is sent off to a training camp for child soldiers. So she's now 7 years old.
And she's a soldier.
And she's now a child soldier. So she is walking around placing and burying landmines all over the place. She's dealing with live explosives that she's burying into the ground, covering with dirt and leaves.
I don't want to do that now.
Of course you don't. But that's what she's doing at 7 years old. She's also making pit traps. She's learning hand-to-hand combat. She's being trained in how to use automatic weapons. And she's like 7 and 8 years old. In November of 1978, she is now 8 years old, and she sneaks out of the camp without permission and walks back to her mother's hut. When she gets to that hut, it was completely empty. Her mom and her littlest sister were gone, and the woman in the neighboring hut told them that they had been taken away by the soldiers, and they were never seen again.
So just like the dad.
Just like the dad. So most likely the mom and that 4-year-old girl were also killed and dumped into a mass grave.
Oh my God.
So it's now January 1979. She's 9 years old. And her camp is attacked by the Vietnamese army. And at this point, bombs are flying and guns are firing. And her camp, everybody in her camp is fleeing like crazy. And her and a massive group of people are fleeing through these fields. And suddenly landmines start going off as they're fleeing.
Oh my God.
They're running through an area full of landmines that they had fucking planted themselves.
Right.
And she is watching as all of the people in her camp are getting blown up left and right, in front of her, behind her, all around her. And suddenly she stops and just realizes that she is surrounded by landmines. She's 9 years old and is fleeing for her life and is now stuck in a field completely full of landmines. Can you imagine anything more terrifying than that?
No, especially not even now, let alone being that young. Like, I don't know. I don't think I would have had the self-control to be able to not just run anyway.
Oh, totally. And one of the best scenes, and that's actually the coolest scene in the movie. And in the movie, again, I don't know how much of this is dramatized. Everybody's just kind of fleeing and panicking, but she's the only one who kind of stops and slows down and starts looking at tracks and like walking very carefully and walking in the tracks of other people who've made it through areas that haven't exploded.
Right.
And she becomes very, very calm and collected, and focused.
I mean, she would have had to some degree.
Yeah, with that determination to live, which also reminds me of like Vanessa Gay from the Anthony Sowell story, the woman who saw the headless body in the next room and was just acting like nothing was wrong. This ability to just like get calm, get focused on the situation at hand, and ask yourself, how am I going to get out of this alive?
Right.
That is really compelling to me. So she did manage to make it through, and she manages to find some tracks and walk through them. And in the ensuing chaos of everybody fleeing these camps, she coincidentally, and this is the kind of thing that if this happens in a movie, you just roll your eyes at, but this is real life, she manages to run into two of her siblings.
Oh my God.
She just runs into them. She runs into Kim and Chow.
Oh, hey.
Yeah, Kim was the one who was 11 and Chow was the one who was 9. So at this point, they're older than that. But they're her older brother and sister. But they were the ones who were young enough to have stayed with them the whole time. They were the other two who ran away with her in the middle of the night. So she runs into those two. And the three of them set off for a Pursat city, which is a refugee camp. And her brother and sister make it to the refugee camp. And while they're staying there, the refugee camp is constantly being attacked by the Khmer Rouge, and they're still witnessing lots of the atrocities of war while they're there. But 2 months later, two more of her siblings, two of the two teenage boys, they also make it to the refugee camp. So now 5 of the 7 siblings are reunited.
Right.
The other 2 are dead.
Right. And they don't know if, well...
But
I don't
every
know if they
single
presume that at this point, or that they just can't find them.
Sure. But every single one of the living siblings managed to make it to this refugee camp within a 2-month period of each other.
Right.
How insane is that?
That's definitely like movie level for sure.
Yeah. So the 5 of them end up making this journey together to Bat Dang, which was an 18-day journey from where they were. And when they get to Bat Dang, her brother Meng ends up getting married. And he manages to work his connections and is able to smuggle out himself, his wife, and there's enough space and money for him to bring one other person with him.
Who was it?
It was Loung Ung.
Why did they choose her?
I don't know.
Because she's not... Oh, well, she was the youngest.
She was... Oh, you're right. You're right. She was the youngest. You're right. She became the youngest.
I mean, not that that's why they would, but...
That's a good point, though.
Factor.
That is one factor. So he chose Loung Ung.
She's not the only girl.
And in October of 1979, they managed to escape on a fishing boat to Vietnam. Then, 4 months later, in February 1980, they made the perilous 3-day journey over the Gulf of Thailand to the Lam Sing refugee camp. So now that they're in Thailand at this refugee camp, they spend 5 months there before they are sponsored by the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops. And in June of 1980, because I am a narcissist, 2 months after I was born.
Oh my God.
In June of 1980, they were sent to their new home in Essex Junction, Vermont.
Why there?
That's where they found, I guess that's where I don't know why they're there. That's where the Catholics sent them.
All right.
I mean, I think it's just a well-known fact that Catholics like to send people from Thailand to Vermont. That's just how it works.
I guess. So what does this have to do with Cleveland?
What? Oh, what?
I said, what does this have to do with Cleveland?
Was this supposed to be about Cleveland?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, bear with me. I will tie it in. So, before I tell you more about their story, I just kind of want to let you know about the Khmer Rouge. So, between 1975 and 1979, the Khmer Rouge regime killed nearly 2 million people.
2 million?
Cambodia's population is 7 million.
Right, that's like... Well, I can't think of...
I can give you context. So,
I know the Holocaust was...
Washington State has about 7 million people.
Right.
Can you imagine if
Washington's pretty dense, but...
But still, can you imagine if over a 5-year period, a quarter of the population of Washington State was slaughtered? That's what happened in Cambodia.
Well, it's like not... How many people were killed in the Armenian genocide?
I don't know. I don't know how many people were killed in the Holocaust.
Like that's like
I don't know.
I mean, the Holocaust was at least 6, I think.
I don't know. I don't have these numbers.
So that's very comparable.
I think once you're talking about deaths in the millions, whether it's
I think
one
once
or
you're
six,
10,000, you're
exactly.
way up there.
At that point, it's so disgusting and traumatic and tragic and sad that I don't know which one's the biggest, and I don't really personally think it matters much.
No, but I just mean, like, I just didn't realize that there's something where 2 million people had died. It's not something that is easily recognizable, at least to me. Well,
and I think that's where people will talk about how history's made by the people who write the history books.
Yeah.
You know, you and I...
Well, I mean, I might have heard something in passing.
But regardless, you and I grew up in America, and America was bombing Cambodia during this time.
That's true.
And sure, it was the communist revolutionaries who were murdering them, but the communist revolutionaries rose because of what we were doing in their country. So I think it's not a coincidence that we don't learn about this shit when we're growing up, because like it's our fucking fault.
Right.
You know, it's when we meddle in the affairs of these other countries, these horrible things happen. But anyways, so she is now living in America, and she is mocked in school for her poor English skills. Her belly is still bloated from malnutrition, so all the kids are making fun of her for that.
Oh, Jesus.
And in high school, she ends up writing a paper about growing up in Cambodia, and her teacher encourages her to write the whole thing out at some point. She ends up attending St. Michael's College on a scholarship, and that's where she began her activism, and that's where she met her husband, Mark Premier. After college, she worked as a community educator at a shelter for abused women. Then in 1995, when she's 25 years old, she and her brother Meng return, and they're reunited with their siblings. After this happens a year later, she begins working for the Vietnam Veterans of American Foundation, which is a humanitarian organization that helps people in Cambodia. In 1997, she's awarded with the Herbert Scoville Jr. Peace Fellowship, and with that money, she uses it to research weapons trafficking and landmine legislation.
Oh, specific.
Very specific. And in 2000, she writes her memoirs.
So she's having extremely well contrasted life here.
Yes. She's having a good life in America.
I feel like also a very stereotypical thing is that, like, you escape all of that shit and then you come here and then just more terrible shit happens to you on top of that.
Yeah, she was made fun of a little bit, but that's about it. So in 2000, she ended up publishing her memoir, which is called First They Killed My Father, A Daughter of Cambodia Remembers. And that was published in 2000 by HarperCollins. Now, shortly after this, she is working in Cambodia with the Vietnam Veterans of American Foundation, where she becomes friends with Angelina Jolie.
What?
She's like hanging out in Cambodia, and Angelina Jolie is there collecting children for her to adopt.
Oh, that sounded weird.
I don't think that's true. I made that part up. But they're both in Cambodia doing work, and they end up meeting and becoming friends. And Loung Ung gives her a copy of her memoir, and Angelina Jolie is like, "This is amazing. We need to turn this into a movie."
Girl Interrupted?
Exactly, yes. So this is how Girl Interrupted came to be. So anyways, that happened. In 2002, she marries her college sweetheart, Mark Premier, and the two of them bought 2.5 acres of land in Cambodia. And what we haven't mentioned about Mark Premier yet is Mark Premier grew up in Shaker Heights here in Ohio. And because of that, they moved back to Ohio, to his homeland, Shaker Heights.
Okay.
And
is that where they're at now?
Yeah, they still live here. Yep. And you're going to be fucking shocked when I tell you what they're doing now. But I'm not there yet,
You kind of
Mitchell.
told me what they're doing now.
I did not. I totally did not. What are they doing now?
I knew that was going to happen.
Fan down. Our crazy fans are already like breaking shit up.
Then tell me what they're doing then.
I'm not ready. So, but I'm almost there. I'm almost there, I promise. We're very close to that. So by 2005, she had returned to Cambodia for her 25th time. And this time she was returning as the Vietnam Veterans of American Foundation spokesperson for the International Campaign to Ban Landmines. That same year in 2005, she published her second memoir, Lucky Child, A Daughter of Cambodia Reunites with the Sister She Left Behind. Then in 2017, she and Angelina Jolie finally make that movie. So this is just last year. They make this movie called First They Killed My Father, and that movie is now streaming on Netflix.
I've never even heard of it. I'm sad now.
Yep. And Loung Ung and her husband Mark Premier live in Shaker Heights, and they are the co-owners of Speakeasy, Bar Centro, and the Market Garden Brewery.
What?
Yep. Where we had drinks the other fucking night.
What?
Yeah, isn't that where we went when we were meeting with after the birthday cruise?
No, that was Masthead.
Oh, that was Masthead?
But I know what Market Garden is.
Okay, well, still. I guess it wasn't
You
where
don't,
we went.
but I do.
I don't. But okay.
I do.
Yes, so they're the co-owners of Masthead
what's his
Brewery.
name
Can you
again?
believe that? I'm kidding, it's Market Garden. Mark Premier.
Oh.
But yeah, so together...
Maybe I did know that.
Together they co-own Speakeasy,
Yeah, I've heard of Speakeasy.
Bar Centro, and Market Garden Brewery.
Yeah, Market Garden definitely, because Market Garden has a couple things going on down in, it's like the West 25th. It's around the West Side Market.
Yep. So she's also...
I took a tour of Market Garden, actually.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
When I went to their website.
I've got, hold on. Okay, I don't know what happened.
Because when I went to their website, I did see that they give tours. What was it you were trying to find?
I've got a, so when you take a tour, it's actually very economical, because you take a tour and it's like $10, and they give you these 4 little, what would they be called? Like wooden nickel type poker chip looking things, but they're like wooden.
Tokens?
Yeah, like 4 like token things that say Market Garden on them, and each of them is good for like a sample of beer. And it's probably worth like, I feel like those 4 tokens are probably worth $10, and you get the whole tour.
Nice.
And they let you taste all the ingredients of the beer except for the hops.
Yep. Interesting.
It's a really cool tour.
So I would end the story there, but I guess there's also another potential dimension to this story, which is that there are some people who think that her story is a bunch of BS.
Like the whole thing, or just pieces of it?
Somewhere between the two. Not the whole thing.
Okay.
But there are specifically a bunch of people from Cambodia who survived the Khmer Rouge.
What?
Who say that her story is a bunch of shit. A bunch of bullshit.
Oh, no. Because that could either be like propaganda, like brainwash shit.
Uh-huh.
Or, I don't know.
So for one thing, in the book, she constantly describes herself as being middle class in Cambodia.
Right, like at the very, very beginning.
When she is clearly incredibly wealthy for
Right.
Cambodia. I mean, she had a fucking a maid that came every day.
Right.
You know, they had a level of wealth that almost nobody in Cambodia had. Also, her mother was a very wealthy Chinese immigrant. And with that, they had a lot of money from that. But also, coming from a Chinese family, they had a lot of different opinions and views of the Cambodian people and the Khmer people than a normal person who survived this would have had. And they say that she brought a lot of bias into the way she told the story. And a lot of people say that her story is actually like, I don't think racist is the right word, but that her portrayals of the Khmer people are really off. And in a way that many people find very offensive.
So, like, are other people saying, like, yeah, we survived that shit too, it wasn't that bad?
No, they're not saying that. But they're saying that the way that she told the story was very offensive in its portrayal of the Khmer people.
It's offensive in the way of these people are fucking killing us?
No, I'm sorry. So the Khmer Rouge is the name of the communist organization, but the Khmer people are the people of Cambodia.
Oh, so she was portraying even like the innocents.
Exactly.
What we consider the innocents.
Exactly.
Okay.
They're all the Khmer, I believe.
Maybe
I'm confused what the Khmer
That's what I
are,
thought you were just saying, like just like all of them.
No.
Okay.
Also, her father was a member of the police. He was a high-ranking police officer, and the secret police at that time were famous for brutalizing and secretly murdering people all the fucking time. So her father, who she talks about, like this really wonderful, sweet, kind man, and he might have been,
was probably doing that shit
was a
too.
high-ranking officer in a really fucked up system.
Right.
Now, also they're saying that a lot of, like if you just fact check a lot of the timelines and locations that she talks about, a lot of people say like they're just wrong. That it doesn't take a lot of effort to just see that like it doesn't match and it doesn't add up. So many Cambodians who've read the book say that she's just exaggerates, or some people say that she's just straight up lying about a lot of this stuff.
Jesus.
Now, that's one alternate view. Now, she does have a few responses, and I'll read a couple of them to you, because she actually did respond to some of these. And one of the things she said is, she said, a child who grew up with her affluent Chinese family do have certain biases, internal racism and other isms, and views on life that may not be the story of the general population. However, writing my book from a child's point of view was the most powerful way for me to tell my story. She also said, how people chose to read my book, dissect it, attack, or support it is nothing I can control, nor do I wish to. As for the question of my seeking fame and fortune, I have neither. Every day, I get up to put in way too many hours in my office, on planes, trains, and automobiles for the Campaign for a Landmine Free, a non-profit organization for which I am a spokesperson. In the last 2 years, I've traveled over 60 universities and colleges and given over 100 talks about landmines to raise money for a program in Cambodia that makes plastic arms and legs for victims of landmines. In my free time, I talk to members of Congress and the press and anybody who's willing to listen about helping Cambodia. I don't get paid much, I have very little personal time, and I'm always disoriented from all of the travels. I think there's a lot of ways you can look at this, but I do have empathy for her because I know that my brother and I both grew up, my brother and I had the same childhood, and he and I have very different recollections of parts of it.
Yeah, I can see that as a thing. And I also see as basically everything that she just said, to where, I mean, not that you're not lying, but what is she getting out of it?
Well, you could argue that she got a fucking book deal out of it, a movie deal out of it, and a lot of money from the book and the movie deal. She's getting a lot out of it. I mean,
finally.
Sure.
But what? I don't know. It just seems like a lot to...
I can see why a Cambodian person, let's say you survived something horrific, and then you read a book by another survivor, and you read that book, and the way that the other survivors are portrayed is a completely offensive portrayal to you. I can imagine it would be upsetting to you.
I guess, but I don't know. I don't have the specific
reference points.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I was trying to get at with my brother.
I'm not saying I wouldn't have that, but I just don't have that. I like to make that comparison.
Sure. It's like when I talk to my brother about our childhood, we both have very different perspectives on it. And for example, I will say that we lived in a trailer park growing up. And my brother will argue with that. He's like, we did not live in a trailer park. It's like, okay, well, we lived in a town that was entirely made of trailers. He's like, yeah, but that's not a trailer park. That's something different. So it's like, I get that one person's perspective may be different than another person's, and that somebody can find offense to that perspective. You know, because when I talk about my childhood, it feels very true and real to me. But the way that I talk about it is a way that tends to bristle my brother's feathers.
Yeah, but that's like a semantics thing at that point, I think.
Sure. So I personally...
Because I feel like a lot of people would define that as a trailer park. Not in an offensive way.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, because clearly when I'm saying I lived in a trailer park, I'm saying it in an informative way. And my brother, I think, is hearing it as me...
Like Trailer Park Boys?
Yeah, I don't know. Or trailer park or trailer trash. But I personally... having very little information about this other than what I've researched, I personally don't think she's lying or intentionally exaggerating. I think
it's just her skew on...
She was between the ages of 5 and 10, and she's telling the story to the best of her recollection of it.
I mean, it's her bias, but not purposefully. It's just that was her experience, yeah.
Exactly. And yes, she was a spoiled little rich girl who ended up in a horrific situation, and her experience of that isn't going to be the same as somebody who was one of the incredibly poor, whose family members were probably very pro the Khmer Rouge, because most of the country was in favor of the Khmer Rouge to begin with, I think. Maybe that fact is incorrect. I think I heard that for the most part, the general population was in favor of the Khmer Rouge, basically until they started slaughtering all of them. But like the Khmer Rouge was like, we're going to get rid of the American influence in our country, which was amazing for them. They really wanted that. And they were going to abolish the class system. Nobody was going to be rich. Nobody was going to be poor. We were all going to be equal. And most people, that sounds amazing.
And this is how we're going to do it. We're going to kill most of you.
Exactly. We're going to completely empty out cities. We're going to murder anybody who disagrees with us.
Right.
And we're going to force you into labor camps.
It's really easy to balance that way.
Yeah, totally. So that's my story.
So We need to get a hold of her and hang out.
Yeah, Loung, what's up? Let's go grab some drinks at Bar Centro.
No, Market Garden.
Market Garden.
I'm not saying that the other ones are bad, but I just like Market Garden.
Well, actually, I did look at the Yelp reviews, and it looks like the Yelp reviews for Speakeasy aren't very good. I think it had like a 2.5 stars. And then Bar Centro had like a 3 or 3.5. But then I think Market Garden had like 4 or 4.5.
Market Garden's really cool.
Yeah. At least according to Yelp, it seems like of the 3, Market Garden is the one to go
and they
to.
have a few. When we went on that tour, I learned they have one at the corner. I can't remember what it's called, like right up from where the brewery is. They have like 2 or 3 things going on.
Okay.
But it's all from what now I know as them. But yeah, we'll have to go.
One thing that really cracked me up, though, about one of the bad reviews for the Speakeasy was some woman left this review and she's like, "This isn't a speakeasy at all. This is just some small bar with loud music."
You're like, yeah. So,
it's like, yeah, speakeasies haven't existed for almost 100 years.
Oh my god. She's like, they didn't ask me for a password or anything. 1 star. I'd like to see her other reviews.
I know, right?
Like, I want to see, like, I wish I could think of a place now. Like, this isn't.
Exactly. Her review for the movie A Bug's Life. There wasn't a single real bug in that movie at all. I'm so angry. Oh, man. I went to Applebee's and I didn't see any apples on the menu at all.
Oh my god. It's just all the reviews are just that. Like, it's the same exact format. It's like
exactly.
a Mad Lib, but
this incredibly like literalistic approach to all of her reviews.
It's like, I went to bar name and it wasn't a true whatever at all. Like, it's just all her reviews are like that.
I went to Red Robin and I ordered the Red Robin Rare and they said, "Ma'am, please leave." So that is our story. That is my story. So I guess we can lighten things up a little bit and close up with some recommendations. So Mitchell, what do you recommend? I mean, because one thing that I might recommend is for us to stop burping mid-sentence, because I feel like Karen and Georgia are never going to listen to our show if we keep acting like such gross boys.
I'm going to edit like all of those out, I think.
I don't think you are.
A lot of them are clear cuts. Oh. Yeah.
Nice.
So now you're just referring to something that doesn't exist.
Fine. Burp.
Besides recommending air conditioning.
Yeah, central air. Highly recommended.
Which I would definitely do right now, because it's literally over 100 degrees in this room.
Yeah, Mitchell and I, we took a break, and when we stepped outside, he's got a little thermostat in his hallway. His hallway is 94. However, when we stepped into his hallway, it was like refreshingly cooler in his hallway than it is in this room.
At 94.
Exaggeration. At 94.
So besides that, what I'm going to recommend is something we talked about the other day, might have just been yesterday, which will be the movie Dead Alive.
Oh.
Or actually, I think its technical title is Brain Dead.
Well,
but
its New Zealand title is Brain Dead, I think, but its American title is Dead Alive.
Yeah, but almost everywhere is listed as Brain Dead. But regardless, it's still Dead Alive.
Yeah, I've never seen it. I like on fucking IMDb, sure, but like I've never seen like a DVD or a VHS or a Laserdisc release that said Brain Dead.
We can find it. I'll find it right now.
Well, I'm sure you'll find like a New Zealand release of it, but will you find me an American release that's called Brain Dead?
No, but I'm saying whenever you like look for things about it, it always comes up Brain Dead.
All that matters is what it says in America.
Oh, I'll tell you about it later. So that movie is like one of the pinnacles of comedy horror for me. I used to watch it all the time when I was little, and I don't really remember watching it like specifically. I don't remember it from when I was little, but I just remember that I used to watch it all the time. And then as an adult, it wasn't really easy to find, and I finally bought it off of Amazon maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and it was expensive even for a DVD. I mean, especially I guess now it would be probably a lot cheaper. Not that movie specifically, but just DVDs in general. But it was like, I feel like it was close to $20 used just a few years ago.
Because for a while, DVDs were like $29.99 and some shit.
Right. But I mean, now you can find like everything for like $3.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I paid like $20 for it because I was like, I can't find it anywhere else. But it's just very good. It's Peter Jackson, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And I feel like somebody does the special effects.
Meryl Streep.
No. It's not Sam Raimi, is it?
I don't think it is.
I don't think it is either, but just over the top, probably out of any other thing I can think of off the top of my head right now, it's definitely like in the top 3 of most ridiculous, over the top, gore, storyline even.
Yeah, the amount of blood and gore featured in that lawnmower scene is truly epic. And I've not seen the movie since the 90s, and I desperately need to rewatch it. And I was just thinking about, because you and I were watching Ash vs. Evil Dead, which you watched the first season of. Is that it? Or the first two?
We watched we watched like the first 3 episodes of the season 1.
No, I know, but you previously.
Oh, I've only seen the first season. Yeah.
So you had seen the first season. You and I have watched the first 3 episodes, and I kept thinking about that lawnmower scene just because, like, the completely over the top, ridiculous blood and gore in that TV series.
Yeah, that's like the pinnacle of the entire movie. Just everything else that happens in that movie is like the reason that I love cheesy horror.
But the grandma scene with like the monkey is also great.
Yeah, exactly.
So much good stuff.
It's good. And I love it. And we'll have to watch it again since you haven't seen it recently.
And also, since it's made by Peter Jackson, if you're a fan of the Hobbit trilogy, that means you would love Dead Alive.
Yeah, same thing.
It's all Peter Jackson. All the same basic thing.
All Peter Jackson all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just do a Peter Jackson podcast now.
Great. I love it. We can talk about nothing but really hot dwarves.
Yeah. So what's your Peter Jackson recommendation?
My Peter Jackson recommendation is there's this great band that Peter Jackson is in called Taco Cat. And Mitchell and I had the distinct pleasure. Wait, now I'm nervous. Did I already recommend?
You already did.
Did I already recommend Taco
I think
Cat?
you did because we were going to see them.
That's hilarious because I already have like a notoriously bad memory, and I on other podcasts, like for example.
I'm 100% sure you did.
Okay. Well, then I guess that means, because I was gonna recommend seeing them in concert because I think I just recommended their music before we saw.
No, you recommend going and seeing them because we were talking about going and seeing them.
Oh, but did I recommend it after we saw them?
No, it was before because we were going to see them.
Well, now that we've seen them, they're really good. And they put on a really great show. But I guess that means I now need to come up with something else to recommend. Did we recommend Hereditary?
You did the first episode.
I know.
I would recommend that again.
That one,
we watched it. I watched it 3 times this week.
You and I have watched it both 5 times total and 3 times this week.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. I watched it 2 times this week.
Right, because you saw it 3 times.
Yes.
Yeah, in theaters.
But we're both at the 5 mark. Well, fuck. That means I need to recommend something else. Did I recommend Umbrellas of Cherbourg yet?
I don't think so.
Guys, please go out and watch Umbrellas of Cherbourg.
No, you just made a Facebook post. Okay. Yeah. You're
okay. Good. Umbrellas of Cherbourg. It's a French movie. It's from the 1960s. It's by Jacques Demy. It stars Catherine Deneuve. And it is a Technicolor musical. And for those of you who are like, fuck you, Jeff, I don't want to watch a Technicolor musical.
Fuck you, Jeff. I don't want to watch a Technicolor musical.
Exactly. For all of you assholes out there like Mitchell, I just want to say this movie is beautiful and heartbreaking. And it is like... If you're going to watch it, okay, if you're like, no, I'm not going to watch that. I want to tell you, it is a rebellious fucking movie because it is the absolute opposite of a fucking American Hollywood movie musical. Because yes, they're both sung, and yes, they are both Technicolor, but I will say that for one thing, although the movie is sung from beginning to end, there are no songs. So it's not just like a hit-making machine. It's telling a story through song. But also, I will add that like the Hollywood movie musical is usually telling a really simple story with really over-the-top spectacles. But also a really simple story... Wait, now I confused myself. I've had too many PBRs, Mitchell. I can't talk eloquently about movies when I've had too many PBRs. The traditional Hollywood movie musical tends to tell an overly complicated story that's often really just a very, very simple emotional story that's like doesn't have a whole lot of depth. Where the Umbrellas of Cherbourg has a really kind of deceptively simple storyline, but it is so emotionally complex and deep and beautiful and wonderful. And it's easily one of my top 10 favorite films of all time. Highly recommend it. Please go see it.
Plus there's umbrellas.
And there's Cherbourg.
Umbrellas or umbrellas?
Well, paraloup, or I don't know how to speak French. But one thing I love about Umbrellas of Cherbourg is whenever they say Cherbourg, they actually say Cherbourg.
Yeah, so you're saying it wrong.
Cherbourg. Well, no, is it Paris?
Yeah.
Is it Deutschland?
Yes.
No, it's Germany and it's Paris.
Is.
We're in America.
You're in America.
America.
Who is America?
Yeah, that's a good show. We should recommend that sometime. I'm going to be so bad at this because I'm just going to keep recommending the same shit because I have no memory.
We could just do the same episode every week, probably.
That's true.
I could be like, oh no, you did the subject last week. I'm going to do the subject this week.
That's true.
See how many times I can do the same subject every week.
So next week I'll be doing Michael Madison.
No, I'm the one that does it.
Oh wait, what are you doing next week?
I don't know yet.
Cheater!
I know.
Mitchell, you're supposed to tell everybody.
I've got a couple ideas, but I haven't really narrowed it down yet.
Oh my god. Exhausting.
I know. This is the first time that nobody's going to have a sneak peek.
Ugh.
Not even you.
Not even me. And I deserve it more than anybody.
I'm either going to do... I'm not going to say specifically, but the topics I'm either going to do is either going to be another true crime or it's going to be something completely different. I haven't decided.
Okay, so basically you've narrowed it down to something that we keep doing and something that we're not always doing. So basically you've opened it up to anything.
Yeah.
It could be anything.
Well, it's gonna be related.
You're
to
like,
Cleveland.
basically, it's gonna be a murder or it's gonna be a not murder.
Yeah. Everything in life is either murder or not.
Exactly.
Murder.
I was gonna say, name one thing that does not fall into the category of murder or not murder. You can't.
The color blue.
That is clearly not murder. The color blue is not murder.
It's debatable.
How? Please tell me how blue is murder.
That's going to be my subject.
How blue is murder.
Yeah.
A contemplation by Mitchell.
My subject is going to be me.
We're going to play really contemplative music.
We'll play Blue Velvet.
Ooh. Can you give me a massage while you rub essential oils over me and talk about how blue is murder?
If it's 100 degrees, no, I'm not fucking touching you.
Well, I have central air. We can record at my house where it can be a nice, cool 72.
Still no.
How dare you?
Okay, I thought of a good sign off. Well, it's not a good sign off, but I just wanted to say like something like, fuck you, Cleveland, but in a good way.
Oh,
yeah.
I like that. Fuck you, Cleveland, but in a good way. Oh.
We gotta think of a way to make it sound good without having to say, but in a good way.
Yeah. I like it. So you can say fuck you, Cleveland, and I can say but in a good way.
I don't know. Nobody gave us a suggestion this week.
Well, let's try it.
All right. Well, fuck you, Cleveland.
But in a good way.
Bye.
Bye.